Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Relationship Wednesdays right here on KTN Life in Style. And our topic today is all about domestic violence. And just to narrow it down, why do spouses choose to stay in abusive relationship? To join me in this conversation, we still have our panelist, Dr. Nderito. We have JB Masanduku, not new faces on the panel, and my lovely co-host, Susan. I told you guys to use the hashtag KTN Life and Style, and I'm just going to sample a few of your responses. We have Tesh_Sucre. Wow. This is what she had to say about why spouses decide to stay in abusive relationships. I was in one for 2 years. I had no kids. Of course, the abuse started like 6 months down the line after I moved in. And to be honest, it's such a long story. That is so sad. I'm so sorry. We have Muchemi_Maggie. She says, no need risking my children's future as growing up around such abuse is unhealthy. And maybe one of the reasons why some people even end up being abusive themselves, because it's become a normal thing to them, yeah? And then we have Lonsela_blog says, it depends, but no, let's have the law take its course. Okay. Let's have the law take its course. Okay, that's like reporting, like you were saying. Yeah, and then we have London_friendly says, it depends. If the kids cry at 2 in the morning, I'd stay. Because then I think they can handle.
Also when they're younger.
Yeah, because they're, I mean, otherwise why are you crying at 2 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, what responses do you have?
I have somebody who just said, because the devil is real. I was like, okay. But seek help, though, if you are in a situation. I have somebody who said that the person, they may have been exposed to it in the past and they've normalized the experience. So that's probably if you grew up in an abusive home and you witnessed a lot of abuse when you were young. Somebody said they believe that they deserve it or are afraid to leave their partner because of the abuse. Somebody else said, because love can make you irrational. That one I agree with completely. I have another person who said childhood trauma and trauma bonding. So you can also delve a little bit more into that. Childhood trauma and trauma bonding are closely linked to this. Wow, you guys, my followers are, they're like all psychologists. Shout out to all of you. Guys, keep your responses coming using the hashtag KTN Life and Style. We really appreciate it. Before we go back to talking to our panelists, we do have another case that I'd like you to see. So watch this video.
At the Nyeri police line living quarters, we find a bruised and battered Catherine Nafula. The 42-year-old mother of 3 looks dejected as she goes on to give her account of last night's events, where she claims that her husband of 10 years, a traffic police officer attached to the traffic department at the Nyeri police station, beat her up badly. She says her husband was not amused when, upon returning home in the evening, found out that she had visited a lady neighbor whom the said husband had supposedly banned her from visiting. Clutching several strands of her dreadlocks, Nafula says her husband battered her and went on to pluck these dreadlocks from her scalp. This, she claims, is something that has been ongoing for a while now. This is what is left of the ear after a huge chunk of the earlobe was cut off by her husband using a knife. The two had fought over a lady visitor whom the husband is said to have brought home.
Hakunielezea kama kuna mgeni anakuja. Kisha akanipigia simu akaniambia kuna mgeni anakuja. Nikamwambia mgeni wa aina gani? Akaniambia sijui ni mtoto wa bwana ya shangazi yake, hawana ukoo lakini eti alikuwa university sasa amekuja kumtembelea. Mimi nikasema kama kuna mgeni yeyote anaweza kuja, sieri unielezee, unijue kwa sababu nyumba mimi ndio bibi wa nyumba. Uwezi tu leta mwanamke yeyote uniambia mnajuana naye, mimi nitajuaje kama mnajuana naye? Akaniambia hata wewe umezeeka, ninaona wivu kwa sababu huyo alikuwa ni msichana wa university na amekuja. Sasa mimi hapo ndio nikakasirika, na wakati nilikasirika kumuuliza tukaanza vita. Tukapigana kabisa tena, hata ilichelewa kwenda hospitalini, manake kama hata ningeenda hospitali mapema ningeweza kuokoa masikio yangu at least iweze kuninio.
A neighbor mourns the loss of a departed friend who met her death after a domestic quarrel. This suspect had lived with the wife for only 2 months. According to neighbors, Joseph Kameri returned home drunk Saturday evening and picked a fight with his late wife, Sarah Kimutai, who hails from Kaprokonya village in Kabarnet.
Kamero ni mimi namjua na hata naishi kwa plot yake huko chini. Hata mimi nahofia maisha yangu ni kama anaweza kuja huko na nifanyie kitu mbaya.
Kwa sababu hiyo sio mzuri. Hata mtu utakuwa unatembea na uchungu. Nikasema sasa huyu kweli akiesa nipata hapo kwa barabara aanze mchezo akukate si mbaya.
Wow. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we've seen in those two stories. But first of all, shout out to our sister station, KTN News. We got these stories from them. Some of them happened some little time ago, but a lot of femicide and murder and just in general abuse, physical abuse and harm of partners is still happening in our country and all around the world today. So I want, what is happening a lot in the stories, like I mentioned, femicide, where of late there are a lot of stories of, like there's the girl, the student who was hacked literally in daylight, which to most people it sounds abnormal, you know, it sounds crazy, but a lot of these abusive cases can get to the point where somebody is seriously harmed or even killed. Now I want us to discuss getting out of these abusive relationships. So we talked about all the reasons why people stay, but now I am wondering, is there advice, is there a step-by-step guide for somebody who is watching, maybe who is in it or has a relative who is in it and is wondering, now they are, how do you get out of this situation?
Usually getting victims out of an abusive relationship is usually tough. It's very difficult because of many reasons, and one of them is psychological. You know, you talked about Stockholm syndrome, trauma bonding, and this occurs because of the cycles of intense emotional interactions between the abuser and the abused. It's very intense and it's very emotional. So people get attached to each other through emotions, but they can be good or bad emotions. So the trauma, these cyclical experiences between the abuse and the abused, the abuser and the abused, causes this person, the abused, to really rely on this person. There is manipulation, emotional manipulation that is going on, and so this person, the abused, begins to believe or to feel almost like a kind of a safety, an emotional safety with them. I know that's an oxymoron, but they feel there is the attachment that happens, and at another time maybe we can talk about what is the difference between attachment and love. They can be two different things. So when this happens, then it is usually very difficult to get this person out. The other day I read about the woman who, even after they go to court, she still says, I want to go back to my husband. You know, the guy is actually in court, but she still wants to go back to the husband. This is that now trauma bonding, that Stockholm syndrome that probably is at play here. The other thing that makes it so difficult to get abused spouses out of these marriages is lack of support. And this is, we are talking about family support, we are talking about societal support, and we are also talking about financial support. So if this person has 3 kids, and she's a stay-at-home mom, she doesn't have income, and she's coming from a home where they cannot even support them, and the man has said, if I am going to support these children, you have to stay here. I'm not supporting anybody who is not living within me. If it's in a case of a man, what is he going to do? Leave his home and go where? And leave his wife in this house. So there are these issues that then working with a professional, for instance myself, I would be doing therapy to help the victim talk through what the options are. What are the options you have? And usually in this case, you have the option of leaving things as they are and continue with the cycle, or number 2, seek help for the marriage, or number 3, leave, so that you can be safe and your children can be safe, or whatever that is going to be. Because most of the times there are few cases where the abuser also abuses children, but most of the times it's the spouse who is experiencing that. And so now what we want to, I wish there was a way that we could usually with a victim like that, to have a group of support system. So you have the family, you have the psychologist, then you have the social worker who does now the social, where do we find housing for them, where do we find resources for them, and then you have the legal system also, whether it is the lawyer or whoever is working with them in the legal process. So if we get a team like that together, then it helps. Now, the other thing that we have here, we've been talking a lot about domestic violence and people leaving, but where are they going? We don't have rescue centers. Now, we do have a few, but we don't know them because they are not supposed to be known. They are supposed to be rescue secret centers, because if you know, then the perpetrators can go looking for them. So one of the challenges that we have is that we don't have places where people can go hide. We don't have refuges, refuge for people who are seeking help. And so the family, when I deal with a difficult case of domestic violence, and the lady or the person who's coming to me is wanting to leave, sometimes I will ask, can I loop in your family members? Maybe whoever it is that is supportive of you, can they come for a session and we walk together and we find an intervention? So I will do that. Now, the other thing that is important to also pay attention to, abusers are very threatening. So they will threaten you. Ukienda kwa polisi, nobody will give you the kids. I'll take them away. Mi najua watu Nairobi. I know people in the system. So no matter what you do. So even the victim cannot go to children's services to get support or to get help. And so it's important when I work, I have a lawyer friend who is a family lawyer, and I know he's very passionate about family domestic violence and stuff like that. So when a victim comes to me, I will connect them with him, and he will be able to give them legal guidance on what to do. And I know people who have gone to FIDA and they have been helped, and others who have gone and they didn't get help. But what we want to do is to let people know, if you are a victim and you are watching, to understand that psychologists or therapists will help you to process your situation. So psychologically and mentally you can get to a place where you can think about what is the long-term goal. So you come up with a plan. Don't leave and then 2 weeks later you're coming back. Before you leave, unless it is really your life is completely in danger, leave. But then when you are in the safe place where you are, seek professional help so that you can be helped to come up with a plan of exit. And then we also want to encourage that you understand about the services that are offered by the children's services. And if you have had a bad experience, that doesn't mean all officers of the children's court are bad. You know, there are a lot of, I'm in a group with, I don't know whether you know Dr. Shako, we have a group that she does Vunja Kimya, and she talks about violence, towards spouses and all that. And I see in that group a lot of time cases come and there are several people who come in, a team that comes in, and they get these people help. So anybody who is listening to us and they are thinking, I need to walk away, this is dangerous, I know something bad is going to happen to me if I don't, then reach out to us. And you can let them know how they can reach me, and I will try and connect them
Definitely.
with the right help.
There's something that you mentioned. You said you can come up with a plan.
Yes.
So I was also thinking about the different things that we have on the internet that are willing to help people.
Right. Yeah.
How would you validate I don't know, like the idea behind some things like this? Because I found something on the internet. There is an app called My Plan, actually. It's actually called My Plan. And it's all about, because I downloaded the app and I wanted to see, okay, so what happens here? And it gives you a security code. You key in your security code, and it says the reason for that is just so your abuser does not get to find out the steps that you're taking. But then again, I'm thinking, the way these abusers are starting to be very smart and strategic, I mean, how would I verify the person who created that My Plan app is not an abuser themselves, and they're just trying to have these victims remain victims for the rest of their lives? So is there a way we can verify an identity of things like this on the internet?
I will say I don't know. So that's something maybe I need to look at and understand, and maybe talk to an IT person to see what is the system like, and is it a safe place. So I would say, instead of doing that, just seek somebody who's live.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who
A
is
straightforward, direct person.
like myself. You know,
Okay.
seek for, and we have a lot of counselors now. We have a lot of counselors you know, yesterday I was at Ebru and we were talking about the same thing. So, so
Oh,
a lot
really?
of people are talking about domestic violence,
Yeah.
and so there is help. Don't sit there and feel that like you can't do anything. But I want to say, if you are in an abusive relationship, please read up on narcissistic tendencies, narcissistic partners. And like you said, in fact, I think having interacted with narcissistic females, they are worse than narcissistic men.
Because
Man.
generally
Preach,
women
Daktari,
are
preach,
just,
preach.
you know.
Yeah, no, because
It's true.
because men, you know, men are very men. You guys are very physical, but women, they are more emotional, psychological, and mental.
Yeah.
And so it can really narcissistic women can really break down a guy. They don't have to hit you.
Hey, but
Yes.
now let me ask you.
And they're
We've
hard to
talked a
find.
lot.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot, and we are focusing a lot on the victim, which is a beautiful thing because
Yes.
they're the ones who get the injuries and everything. But now, let's say, you know, these abusers are our brothers,
Yes.
our uncles. You
Yes.
know, what
Our
help?
sisters, our aunts.
Our sisters, our aunts,
yeah.
our
Yes.
mothers.
Guy.
He's really here for the Mondays.
Yes.
So what, and especially for the narcissists, yeah, it's hard to tell a narcissist that they are wrong.
Yes.
That's why they do the gaslighting thing where they say it's your fault that I did whatever it is
What
that
I
I did to
did.
you, or you deserved whatever it is that you got, because why would you do something, etc., etc. So it's very hard to let them understand, yo, what you're doing is wrong. It's not society morally upright. It's just unheard of. It's crazy. You need to see a psychologist. You can tell a narcissist that.
Right.
So how do we help them?
Let me say this. There are two types of narcissists. So we have the narcissist that's a personality issue. That's a psychopath. They are
That's one that can't
purely-
change.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
run.
are purely, they have no, usually you can look, people who, you remember when we were kids and in playtime, the boy who would set the tail of the cat on fire and then they laugh. The boy who would...
And the girl who would stone a dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
So when we are thinking about psychopaths, there are people who don't have feelings. They don't feel the pain of others. They actually find some sort of
Pleasure from
causing pain. So that one, we are saying that one, sasa hiyo hatuwezi saidiana. Those are antisocial personalities. We can't really help with that. However, we have a big percentage of abusers who have narcissistic traits and narcissistic tendencies because of trauma. So this is the way that this is one way you can find this out, and you can try this to see. The person who is in a relationship and they are so afraid of losing you. So they are not necessarily wanting to have power over you, but they are really genuinely afraid that they are not lovable. And finally, they have found somebody who hears them, who understands them, and who makes them feel good. And then they are afraid of losing you. So they begin to protect what they believe is theirs. Now, that is a person who can be helped, because if we can get them to therapy, then they can be able to talk through their trauma. There is one gentleman that I talked to, and I was because normally what happens is that they are good people. I mean, they are good people. They get along with people most of the times, but when they are triggered, there is something that happens. And when I said, well, because he's the one who called for a session, because now his girlfriend was leaving him. So when he came in, immediately I said, tell me who hurt you. And then the story came. And so that story, and he's a very affluent person. So that story, when it came out, that's when I said, do you realize that you're a victim of trauma? And he said, I've never thought of it that way. I never really thought that my anger, my intensity, because what happens is that when he would get blind with the fear of being left, and he has all this money, he has all these things, I have given you everything. What do you mean you're leaving me? So he gets blind. He gets blind, and he beats up that person. So there are some people who have those narcissistic traits because of trauma, and those ones can be helped.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they are willing, now
Yes.
that is the thing. If they
They
are
are
willing,
willing
to
to
get,
get
some
help.
people call me and say, Counselor Grace, this one is going through this. Can you call them and tell them to come for counseling so you can help them? And I say, unfortunately,
It has to
That's
come
not
from
how it works.
them.
counseling
Yeah.
doesn't work like
Yeah,
that. It
it has to
works
come
from
from
you can
them.
still bring somebody and they can come in and we sit there and we talk. But
They'd
at
have
the
to
end
be
of the
willing.
day, they are the ones who have to spearhead. I will help to help them understand the reason why counseling will help them. And by listening and giving them personal regard, then they might actually say, yeah, I like this. I want to come back again. Yeah. So it's important to understand that there's those two
Different types of narcissists.
yeah, that they can be helped. Women who have narcissistic traits, again, they can be because of abuse in the past. And so she stood up and she said, I'll never allow anybody. So the moment I'm triggered to think you are going to abuse me, guess what I'm going to do? I will
I'll
get you
first.
before you get me.
Yeah.
And so people can figure that out. And I like when when the media houses are doing these kinds of things, because we get calls and they say, I listened to you to the show and I actually think that I am one of those people. Can I get some help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want us to talk about the boy
Yes.
Because we're talking about if you're a victim leaving. What advice do you have? Because obviously for men, it's a lot more complicated in the sense of maybe you're not the one with the financial ties to this person, but you could be.
Yeah.
But it's more about society looking at you as this man who left his home, who left his wife, or who left his wife with his children, but you're in such a crazy position. What thoughts do you have on that, and what advice would you give?
First and foremost, it doesn't make you less of a man to involve society or authority once you're being abused, for sure. And another advice, well, a wise man once said, if you're there as a father and you're staying because of your kids and you're being abused, it could be emotional, psychological, that you become depressed, probably even just lose it completely, or physical, and then you die. Either ways, you won't be a father figure if you stay in that relationship and don't seek advice. Either ways, it's even worse. You get
What your kids are seeing.
yes, it's even worse. I mean, we've had cases, and I bet you've had cases where eventually the kids will go look for the dad. Like, why did you leave? What really happened?
Yeah.
And they tell them the story, and you can always rebuild that relationship from where you left it, instead of staying there and dying either physically, emotionally, or actually,
Yeah.
for sure. Another thing, I think society needs to take abuse against men seriously, because for real, if it's a lady, it's news. It's the first item on news. It's when it's the man is like hey watu wa Nyeri wanakala transformer, it's funny, uliona ule mtu wa Nyeri alikatakatwa hivi uso wake inakaa kama football, and guys move on, like that, and I'm like, it's about time. It's about time we also, take it seriously. And just like Dr. said, the telltale signs, that's very interesting, because for example, as a guy, you're dating this girl and she's controlling you, and you don't know. You think she's taking care of you, like she cares. She told me to reduce on eating this and kumbe and you talk to other people and they're like, hey Mazi, that guy is a romantic, he's a gentleman, why kumbe you're just digging.
It's control.
And even society, I think we should be our brother's keeper, for real. As in, come out, for example, you're an Uber driver now, couple imeingia hapo, and then aulize who's paying, and then the lady goes like, huyu alipe huyu Uber, haezi huyu hata matatu alipangi. As a guy, and when you request, I'd just tell you like, hey, either go see daktari ama things hapa kidogo tricks.
But then again, there is somebody on Twitter asking, Sylvia is asking, I'd like to know if growing up in an abusive family with parents who fight a lot, does it necessarily dictate how your relationship as an individual is going to be?
Well, we would say that you have propensity towards that, because then when you are in the same intimate space with somebody else that you trust and care for and you want to have a long-term relationship with, then if you are triggered, I mean, you're going to do what you saw done, because most of the time, so what happens is that we imitate what we see in our homes. We normalize. That's what happens. It becomes normal. And so the angel I don't know is not better than the devil that I know, because I am more, we gravitate towards what is familiar, not necessarily what is good for us. This is what we feel is familiar. And so I would say for that person who has written, it would be important for you to invest in 2 sessions of personal therapy and just talk about your family of origin issues, so that you make sure before you get into the next relationship that you make sure you have done your daddy issue work and your mommy issue work, so that now you don't gravitate towards the thing that you say that I don't want. I never want to be like my mother, or I never want to be like my father. But what else do you know? Do you know how to be the other way? You never saw it. We are creatures of imitation. So it's easier. You've heard of what we say, that you tell me not to smoke, but you're smoking. I'm going to try it. Because we want to learn from our own experience. We rarely learn from the experience of other people. Even when we make choices about how my life is going to be, it's not necessarily because somebody else told us per se. It's because even me myself, I deem that experience to be more beneficial to me. And so I have made the choice. I'm not going to do 1, 2, 3 because, not necessarily because so and so did and they were burnt, but because I also realize that it is not good for me.
So
it's personal.
If you're seeking counseling,
yes,
like probably marriage counseling, and as you said, it's good to solve issues before.
Yes.
So I think people should go for relationship counseling, dating counseling before
you
date. Ukinipatia namba yako mimi na wewe kwa daktari. Kwa number from the beginning. You know, but I think what you're saying is also integral to give a history of your upbringing and stuff like that. Yeah, because like you go for marriage counseling and you talk about just the 2 of you.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks down the line, the lady is telling you, niwe, nichape, nimalise. You wonder where is this coming from. You know.
Wow. Okay, we are going to take a short break. Guys, keep talking to us on social media using the hashtag KTN Life and Style. Our topic today is domestic violence, and I do want to reiterate something that Dr. Grace and JB Masanduko have talked about. Seek professional help. If you can, please, it's very important. We'll see you after the break.